Welcome to Burst of Flavors. Today we're going to make lasagna, and that's a lasagna with a bechamel sauce. Let's begin. This is my outcome of my wonderful lasagna. We all know that lasagna is made with sheets of pasta laid with meat or vegetables, and I make mine with a bechamel sauce. Let's gather our ingredients. You're going to need a pound of ground pork, a pound of ground beef. You're going to need the mirepoix, which is chopped carrots, which is one chopped carrot, one stalk of chopped celery, one large onion, San Marzano tomatoes or Italian style tomatoes. I'm also going to use a cooking white wine. You can also use a Pinot Grigio. I'm also going to use extra virgin olive oil, fresh cracked black pepper, which is my favorite, and of course kosher salt. Let's go ahead and begin. So we first need to make the ragu. To make the ragu, we're going to heat the olive oil in a large Dutch pot. Once the olive oil has been heated, we're going to add our chopped vegetables. That's our carrots, celery, and onion. And we're going to saute this for roughly about 5 minutes. Once this has been sauteed for about 5 minutes, I'm going to turn the heat to medium high, and we're going to add our meat. So that's the look you want. Now let's begin to add our ground pork and our ground beef. Those vegetables look fantastic. So add your ground pork. Go ahead and add your ground beef. And when the meat has browned and the liquid has been released and evaporated, that's when we're going to stir in our white wine. So go ahead and chop up those meats. You don't have to really chop them up too fine. One trick that I like to do when the ragu is done, I actually add the meat to a blender. Not all of the meat, but just about 2 cups of meat. I add to a blender and pour it back in. Okay, let's stir, and then we're going to cover this and let the meat brown. Okay, let's take a look. Now that the meat has browned, this is the look you want. All of the liquid has been evaporated. All right? No more liquids. So next we're ready to add our white wine. As mentioned, I usually buy white cooking wine, but if you've got Pinot Grigio, feel free to add some Pinot Grigio. I've actually also added red wine when I make my lasagna. So the bottom line is just go ahead and add wine. And then we're going to let this evaporate. This should evaporate in another 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, it's been 10 minutes and the wine should have been evaporated by now. I'm going to add a little bit of salt and taste and adjust for seasoning. So I'm also going to add black pepper as well. So once we've added our fresh cracked black pepper, we're going to give this a stir. And always taste and adjust for seasoning during your cooking process. And we should be ready to add our passata, which is our our tomatoes. So you can go ahead and add the tomatoes in. I'm using Italian style. One of my favorite tomatoes to use is San Marzano tomatoes. You cannot go wrong with San Marzano. They are absolutely fabulous. It's worth the pennies, trust me. All right. And so we are going to let this cook and mix in all the ingredients. We're going to let this ragu cook for at least an hour. And honestly, the longer the ragu cooks, the better it tastes. So we're going to incorporate all of these flavors, and in an hour we're going to take a look at this ragu and see what it looks like. All of those wonderful juices should have been released by then. Okay, let's take a look at our ragu. This looks delicious. This is the consistency that you want. As always, always taste and adjust for seasonings. Everyone's palate is different. I'm going to add just a little bit more salt. We don't want to add too much salt because I also like to get the salt from the cheeses as well. Don't forget, cheese has a lot of salt. I'm also adding in some red crushed pepper just to give it a little bit of a kick. Okay, let's go ahead and add some oregano. So I'm going to add some oregano for additional flavor. And our ragu is almost done. Now that the ragu is done, let's go ahead and begin to make our bechamel sauce. You're going to use half a cup of flour, 8 tablespoons of butter. We're also going to need 2 cups of milk, and that's 2 cups of milk. I've got 3. I'm using the 1 cup for something else. Black pepper, ground oregano. I also like to use fresh oregano, but I didn't have any on hand. And kosher salt. Let's now heat the milk on low. Heat 2 cups of milk on low in a separate pot. And then in another pot, we're going to liquefy our butter. And so let's liquefy that butter on low heat. Once the butter has been completely liquefied, you're going to remove it from the heat, and we're going to gradually whisk in the half a cup of flour. So whisk in half a cup of flour, and make sure you use a whisk and not a spoon. Using a whisk will remove all of the lumps. Okay, we've now whisked in the flour, and this is what we call a roux. This is the consistency you want. Next, let's gradually pour in the warm milk. Don't do this at one time, all right? Do it in steps. We want a nice thick sauce, not too thick. Next, let's season our bechamel sauce with the ground nutmeg. And then next we're going to add black pepper and salt. I'm adding in a pinch of kosher salt. And now add the black pepper. And then we're going to whisk these flavors in. If you want, sometimes you can add Parmesan cheese and other cheeses to this bechamel sauce, and that's actually going to turn it into an Alfredo sauce. This is the consistency you want. You can also have it a little thicker, a little bit more thick, but I'm going to keep it at this consistency. We don't like too much of a thick bechamel sauce in our lasagna. And so this is the consistency that we like. We're now ready to layer the lasagna. So pour a thin layer of the bechamel sauce on the bottom of the casserole dish. And let's get that bechamel sauce in all of the corners. Next, we're going to cover the bechamel sauce with a layer of the ragu. So let's put a thin layer of that ragu all over that casserole dish. After we do this, we're going to layer this with lasagna. We're going to place the lasagna noodles side by side on top of the ragu until you've covered it completely. And it's okay to let them lay on top of each other. We want to make sure that we cover everything. And so, by the way, I've boiled 12 lasagna noodles. And we're simply going to repeat this process in the same order that we've just done. I'm also going to add some cheese. You can add as much cheese as you want. We don't like our lasagna too heavy with the bechamel sauce as well as cheese. So I'm layering a light layer of the mozzarella cheese. You could use fresh mozzarella as well. I also grated some fresh Parmesan, and I'm layering the Parmesan. So this is what we're going to do. Repeat the process. Bechamel sauce, ragu, layer it with the noodles, and then layer it with the cheese. And I will use 3 layers, so this will come out to a nice 3-layer lasagna. And so this is my second layer, so just go ahead and repeat this process. My lasagna looks fantastic. When you place the lasagna in the oven, cover it with foil and remove the foil for the last 5 minutes so that the cheese is melted and brown. So here's my sliced lasagna. Thanks for stopping by and watching this video. Feel free to sprinkle it with some fresh basil or fresh parsley. Thanks and enjoy.